This episode of UDSP is brought to you by Audible. For a free 30-day trial and to receive a free audiobook, just head on over to audible.com/Gamebreaker. What's up, everybody? It's 2014. Welcome back. It's episode 30, Unicorn Duck Shadow Puppet, or UDSP, the WildStar's show for January 6, 2013. I'm Gary again. You're watching Gamebreaker TV. Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about 40-man raids. They sound awesome. Lots and lots of data. Data. It's a Farhan-packed data show. He's going to be so happy. We have pie charts and everything. It's going to be a blast. All that and more, but first, of course, joining us as always, Mr. Farhan Siddiqui. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Happy New Year, everyone. WildStar, getting going.
Happy New Year.
Yep.
Mr. Mark Taylor, Happy New Year. Does your shirt say Happy New Year?
It says happy.
It's a triple Happy New Year for you. Okay. Very good. Everybody have a good holiday? Good time off? Little break? We haven't been here for a while. It's been a couple weeks.
Definitely. We were streaming though.
I know.
For the Mondays, so we were trying to hold it down for the Gamebreaker Nation.
Yeah, you guys have been playing a ton. So yeah, you guys definitely watched the stream for the WildStar playage. All right, so we have lots to talk about. It's been a while since we've been back. So those selfish employees over at Carbine didn't release any news, no videos, nothing over Christmas. Damn, what are you guys, slackers? There was a really good interview with Carbine over at workry.com. That was like back in December already, but some interesting quotes here. First up from Mike Donatelli. He says, what we try to do is go, hey, you've got 40 guys. Why don't we split 10 guys off and make them go to a different wing and have to beat a generator down while there are hundreds and hundreds of bad guys spawning trying to stop them. And there are 5 teleporters that can be used once to get back and forth between them and the room where you're fighting the main boss. And if you take the teleport, you can't go back. So if the tank goes down on the far side, you need to decide who's going to peel off and go over there and make sure you can afford to give up that spot for the fight. This sounds way outside of the box. This sounds awesome. Have we ever heard of raids kind of implementing things like this?
I mean, they're really taking advantage of the fact that, you know, in modern day raiding, it's been quite a while since we last did 40-man raids, and back then they just sort of shoved everyone into a room and you're sort of attacking the thing. Maybe occasionally you'd have like specific teams doing something, but for the most part you were sort of like a big giant cohesive unit, and that made it sort of a mess. But now that people have, developed strategies, people are used to theory crafting along, really complicated raid fights. People are used to having voice chat, and all the different tools that help raiders, to actually perform well. Now raiders are a lot better at playing MMOs than they used to be, so they can make way more complex fights to actually take advantage of the fact that you have so many more players within a raid. They're trying to make a purpose to there being 40 men in a raid, besides just being cool that, okay, you brought a lot of people, do something with those 40 people. What can we do with 40 people that maybe would be a lot harder or a lot less viable with only 20 or 10, You can't split.
Do you guys think that this is like something that is going to, I don't want to say the norm, but do you think it's going to be kind of like a thing you're going to use over and over, or do you think it's just kind of like a special encounter, or do you think that this is something that's really indicative of their philosophy behind 40-man raids?
I think it's on the philosophy level, really, that it's something that's going to be used in a lot of different encounters. So it's not going to be like the one-off thing, like this is the raid fight where we split off. It's going to be more of a, actually having these encounters be like sort of bigger than the encounters. Like you're not just fighting one dude, you know. And this is part of the you know, appeal of actually having them able to make their own IP and really control what the lore is, what everything is. They can design these fights around something where you would actually do that instead of just having, you know, the one big bad that you're trying to do. Maybe there's like this complicated encounter that you're actually engaging with, as opposed to, you know, okay, kill the dragon or whatever. So I think that it, you know, at least I hope, and I think it makes a lot of sense, especially with these quotes from this interview, that they would actually implement this kind of splitting and kind of larger scale raid organization as being a big part of raids in 40-man.
So, I mean, I have a few different things or different ways of looking at it. I mean, years ago when I was running Tor Syndicate, we were talking about how we wanted raids to be in terms of having different factions go into the raid instance together, not really like a war plot like they're doing, but in the sense that you kind of combine PvP with raiding to some degree, in which case you have groups working independently and separately and setting each other up for fire. So this is kind of that, but it's also taking a raid into a different direction. But what I think is it's actually a little bit either nefarious or simpler than all that. What I see it being is a way to manage the chaos a little bit better. So instead of just throwing 40 people together and letting chaos ensue, or letting a very well-disciplined guild that's got command channels set up in TeamSpeak or whatever, I think what it does is it makes it a little bit easier, because now you can have 10 people do this and 20 people do that and 10 people do this. And I think it makes it a little bit more simplistic. I think it also, and I hope I'm not trying to sound negative because I'm not, I think it also might be a better use of bandwidth and collisions in the whole 9 yards in terms of the instance, because now you can move people over to different areas to do different things. So I look at it as pragmatic, you know, as a practical effort. I look at it as a fun effort, because now people can have a purpose, right? Like, you know, these 10 people are doing that and other people are doing other things, and hopefully we do see it perpetuate in different raids. But you know, let's not, you know, think about or overlook the fact that it just makes it simpler, because now the people who are designing the raid can create something that 10 people will do together. It'll be easier for people to organize, to do those things, and then maybe they come back together at 40 and beat, you know, a boss or the boss at the final stage or something. So I look at it as innovative. I look at it as fun. I look at it as just self-serving and simple and practical, and I look at it as easier to manage for the raid teams, you know, because when you're looking at 40-man raids, it's going to be chaotic to just run everybody on the same TeamSpeak channel. What you're probably going to want to have is, like, you know, team leads or squad leaders or however you break it up, you know, on different command channels and be controlling it. And that's what really well-disciplined guilds do in raids, those big ones anyway.
And I think what it does too is, you're right. I mean, it does just create like guild leaders and of units or troops to kind of be able to focus on certain things. But it also does actually, hopefully, you know, it allows the developers to when splitting people up, they can actually make those sections of the encounter more pressured and more sort of like high intensity. You know, we could ramp up the intensity because they have a bit of a controlled environment. So it sounds like it's going to be a pretty cool thing. Still, 20 people is a pretty big group. They could do similar things on a smaller scale, I guess, as well. When it comes to the 20-mans.
It sort of depends on how many times you split, though, right? So, like, if you split the group into 2 raids, and this is, you know, the chat room saying a lot that, you know, like, oh, we've seen this encounter that had this splitting of raids, or this other one, and yeah, like, it's like not like the idea that you split the raid is completely new, right? World of Warcraft has had that multiple times. Even in 40-man, like the Extramus, there was like that undead fight where you had 2 people in 2 different rooms and they had like a door completely separating them. There was in Wrath of the Lich King, they had like the airship fight where you would like jump back and forth. So I mean, it's happened before, but it's just a matter of degrees, and it's also a matter of like you know, just going off of what this quote is talking about. It's like, so there's 5 teleporters that can be used once to get back and forth across the room, but if you teleport, you can't go back. So it's really more of a level of like raid organization. So it's like, okay, you have 40 pieces now that you can move around the board, and so, but you can only do a specific number of movements. So, and what he was talking about specifically, I mean, it's hard to like really draw out, like, is this an actual raid fight that he's talking about, or is he talking a little bit more generally? But the idea is that, you know, you're trying to mitigate stuff. So, I mean, this was something that we were talking about in previous shows about what happens if something goes wrong? Like if someone dies and you don't have like a battle res or whatever. Well, maybe in this case they're saying, okay, well you need to mitigate that. You have to say, okay, well this group's actually doing pretty okay. They have their ads under control. They have their thing going. Let's pull a healer out of there and have you just jump over it into that group or something, and do that kind of thing. But you can't come back, and so you have to sort of commit to that. You have to sort of know what resources you have available, what can you move around, what classes are good at different things, and so you can sort of do this kind of stuff. I mean, yeah, okay, you probably could still do some of this at the 20-man level, but it's just you can split things up a little bit more finely. One of the concerns I actually do have, though, is that, like, let's say I'm playing a medic healer or whatever, and there's like an obvious part of this encounter, like this is people are clustered a little bit more closely in this part of encounter 1 or whatever. So you're going to send your medic healer over there because people are clustered a little bit better. It's a little bit better for the AoE healing and stuff. Do I ever get to see the other part of the encounter? Like, how separate are these things? And so, like, am I just going to be relegated to always doing that thing? Do I still feel like I'm part of the whole encounter, or do I just feel like I'm doing this thing over here and I'm not really part of the rest of the thing?
Does that possibly add, replayability into the whole mix that makes you want to run it more than once and not really, it's kind of lame when you start farming gear on raids and you got to keep doing it over and over. At least this way you could say, hey, I ran, wing 1. I want to kind of go in group 2 to run wing 2 this time.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it depends on how viable it is. How finely tuned is it? Like, are they tuning the encounter? Because this is hardcore 40-man raiding. They've said that they're going to tune stuff really tightly. Do they tune it around like, okay, well, you have to use a medic healer to do this part? And they can do that because they have 40 people, so they can pretty reliably assume that, okay, you're going to have a medic healer in there who's going to be able to bring this thing. Or, whatever else, maybe like a spell slinger, maybe whatever. But then, like, if that mechanic is designed to counter that, can I actually engage in the rest of it, or do I have to wait till I'm on an alt? I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see.
It all depends on the guild or the group that's going to do this instance raid, whatever it is, right? I mean, if you get to the really hardcore guilds, you better line up, suit up, line up, and shut up, right? that is your role, and you execute your mission and you get it done, and it's almost like professional or whatever. And so if you're doing wing 1 as a medic,
Guild Umber runs a tight ship, huh?
you do wing 1 as a medic, until you get it on farm, and then after you get it on farm mode, then you can start switching it up, seeing, hey, can we do it with an Esper? Can we do it with a spell slinger? And then you start rotating people's alts in, but it all gets down to getting it down and getting it on farm, getting it like clockwork, and then you start allowing people to bring in alts, or you start changing it. But so
then
people,
you do it all with druids. That's.
I mean, so this isn't like a new problem either, though, right? Like, even in like the confines of my own experience doing World of Warcraft raiding, like, when I did Naxxramas as a holy priest, I was the guy who had to put on spell hit gear so I could mind control on Instructor Vesuvius because there was a boss that you had to like mind control and add, and then have him tank the boss because the boss hit way too hard. So I was the one who got to do that, but the other priests weren't allowed to do it because I had put in the effort to actually collect the gear to actually do it. And so like some of them were a little bit bitter about it, but I mean, like, okay, we got through it. No one really like fussed around it too much. So I don't think it's like a new problem. I'm wondering like, how separate are it? Like if they're talking about you're teleporting, do you still see what's going on in the other thing, or is it just like voice chat? Like oh, we got the boss down. Like, okay, I guess I should teleport now. I didn't even see the death animation. Like,
yeah, but I mean, it's going to be more than that. It all depends on where you're coming from, what your frame reference is. If you're in a really hardcore raiding guild, all you care about is getting that boss down so you can get your loot, so you can go on to the next whatever. You know what I mean? And so if you're looking, like, I usually play a tank, and so in most games, they don't have a range tank. So what are you looking at? You're looking at the jock or the knees of the boss the whole fight, and you're just calling more heals or whatever. And so no tank worth the salt unless you can really pan out, which not all games allow you to do that, especially the way they design the walls or whatever. No one's really complaining. You don't see too many tanks going, man, I really wish I could see more of the fight, because that's just not the way it is. So
healers are like, I want to turn off my heal bars.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, if you're really into raiding a lot and you're just trying to get your gear so you can go do the next thing, no one's going to be complaining. I would argue that it's probably more of the casuals or people who are maybe now running alts who want who want to level up, who care really about, oh, I want to see the rest of the fight. I mean, it just depends on what your frame reference is. If you're just trying to down a boss and get it down to get it on farm and get loot and move on to the next thing, I just think that you care more about accomplishing the mission, and I know where you're rating, so you better suit up, line up, and shut up.
Did Mark just call you a casual? I think he just called you a casual.
We'll see. We'll see.
Check this out. This is an interesting quote here from David Bass. He said, I think that 40-man raids will be a success, but even if they aren't, there's only one 20-man and one 40-man in the game right now. So if 40-man doesn't get much attention, then we've just made one, and we'll keep going with what works. Pretty interesting take on it. I mean, I guess they, not putting all their eggs in one basket as well. I've had my somewhat doubts on the whole 40-man raid thing actually working. I know a lot of gamers, a lot of vets are excited about 40-man raiding, and I totally understand that. But I think the sound of it might be. I still have my doubts. I still have my doubts if 40-man is going to be the thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're looking at it sort of with the same perspective.
But what's the reason though that you have your doubts, if you don't mind me asking?
To try and coordinate and put together 40 people for a raid. I mean, it's monstrous. I mean, it's not an easy
chaos
task.
of the organization.
It's the chaos of the organization of even putting the event together to get that many people online to make the whole thing happen. It's not easy. I mean, There's a reason. I hate to say, but there's somewhat of a reason of why large-scale raiding on that level has kind of gone away to some extent. It just became very cumbersome, and people didn't really want to do it anymore. I know it sounds like people really want to get back to that, and it's the old school days, and it's hardcore, and I think there will be a community for that. I don't necessarily know how big it's going to be, though.
See, I never did it because I never got to raiding in WoW. Like I said, I didn't play very long, but it sounds exciting, from the outside looking in. I mean, I'm used to the standard being 24-man rating in a lot of the games I played, and it just didn't seem like that was hard or very cumbersome. But then again, I was in a very tight rating guild or guilds when I did it, so just the numbers didn't really seem. I
also think you run a guild Umbra probably seems like it might be a little less daunting than most players because you have 40 people practically at your fingertips, right? So you
right
forum post, hey, we're doing it. Here's the night. You'll probably have more than 40 people show up and you'll be fine. Where I think those are the guilds that will prosper and kind of have a lot of fun with this. And I wonder if, but I don't think most people, the average gamer, doesn't run with a guild the size of Umbra.
Right. I think that it's very telling what's sort of happened, especially in what we've seen with World of Warcraft, because they're a good case study because they've changed their raid size so many times, and so you sort of see how things have sort of ebbed and flowed. And one thing that I've noted is that whenever they give you a choice of having a smaller size and a bigger size, the smaller size was way more popular than the bigger size, because if you give a choice between organizing more people and organizing fewer people, most people are just going to go with the smaller choice because it's less logistical work. It's more gameplay and less, outside of the game logistics kind of stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense because you can get in, get out, get your loot, and move on with your day. So I mean, that totally makes sense, right?
Right. So
is a lot of this, do you think, going to stem on the organization and the guild tools that they implement into the game with circles and all things like that? I mean, if they do get the tool set right, it could help a lot to make that happen. I think that's part of the problem with a lot of the other games is they didn't have some out of the box sort of thinking ways to kind of really coordinate and corral that many people unless you were in a guild of a very large guild.
I think that they even said in this interview somewhere, I don't know if we have that quote in here, but they did say that they are working on tools to try to help with some of the logistics, like loot organization, distribution of loot. That is a huge drama-filled part of it. Organization of bringing everyone into the raid, getting everyone in the right spot, getting going. All that stuff is an issue. But going on what I was saying though, if you give players a choice, then they generally sort of gravitate towards that smaller one. And this is just sort of what a lot of the hardcore players are sort of feeling when they're sort of, for every guy who says that they're really excited about 40-man raiding, there's probably at least one other person who is really scared or not tuned into it because they're whenever they were given a choice, they went with the smaller one. And so in this case, a lot of people are sort of worried about it. It's thinking that, okay, well, in WildStar, I don't really have a choice about my raid size. They have a 20-man raid, they have a 40-man raid, but they're separate raids. It's not really the same thing. Like, it's not like you have a choice of going in with a 20-man raid. So are people going to choose a different MMO in order to get their rating fix and in the 20-man size instead of doing that? And that's what that's actually what a lot of the people from hardcore raids are like in World of Warcraft and other ones are actually saying that that's what their worry is that they're not going to be able to feel enough people because it's just too much annoying. So if they're trying to organize all those people, getting them in at the same time, getting everyone going, and yeah, I just hope that they actually can pull it off. I think that if WildStar actually delivers on making a really compelling experience, like I think that they're on a good track with this interview. I'm like a lot more relieved knowing that they're actually designing the raids around 40-man. They're not just pushing 40 people into a raid and saying, okay, this is our raid. We're going to pretty much do the same raid design that we would have. No, they're actually thinking, how does the raid design benefit from having 40 men in there? And if they can actually make it compelling and make it fun, then I think people will actually go ahead and play it. Maybe it's not going to be super, super popular. Like, it's just, it's probably not going to. But hopefully, if it's fun enough, if it's engaging enough, if it's good enough, then enough people will play it that it's worth it to them. And it'll still be that whole thing of like mystique, the players, even the ones who don't play it, as long as they have their own content, like we've said so many times, like as long as there is that solo content, there is that small group content for people to play, so that they don't feel like rating is the end game. It's the only thing that I can do, and I can't do it because I don't want to do 40-man. As long as they have something that they can do, then they're going to appreciate the fact that there's other people doing it, because they're going to look at the cool looking gear, they're going to look at all that stuff, and they're going to be like, oh wow, that's really cool. I'm glad that I'm playing a game that has that, even if they're not personally engaging.
There's also, the other thing is there's an obvious metric here that the Carbine team is going to be looking at, and probably even have somewhat of a time frame built around it that says, hey, launch day, we look at the data from here to here, but by this date, if we don't break some sort of threshold, we really need to look at 40-man rating. I mean, he just is right here. They're building 1-1. If 40s don't work, we just move along and just don't make any more 40-mans and just keep making 20-man. So I don't know how long. It'd be interesting to know how long they're going to sort of give that and what sort of metric they're looking for. But I assume it's going to be a pretty small number. I mean, what is Umbra? Are you guys really looking forward to 40s and trying to coordinate that?
Yeah, I mean, we think that the whole 40-man rating is awesome. We love that. But one thing that I really want to bring up, and I really think that people need to think about, at least for the 40-man raids, is this. It's 2014 now. It's now a commonplace for people to have TeamSpeak or Ventrilo or Access or stuff like that. So this completely screams alliance. This completely screams utilize circles, like so Subterfuge Gaming, Mog Nation, Gamebreaker Nation, Umbra, right there, those are going to be 3 guilds with a shared circle that can people can join, and so we can plan it out and make it an event. We could post it on our website, on with Gamebreaker Nation's website, across a number of different websites, and make it an event so people know that Mog Nation bring 10 people, Umbra bring 10 people, Subterfuge Gaming bring 10 people, and then we'll pick up 10 pugs, and we'll list the the classes that we're gonna accept or something, But the point is you can get them all into TeamSpeak, and now you can talk to them, and then you can set up command channels, and now you can execute with a level of fidelity and a level of control utilizing TeamSpeak that didn't exist or was not very prevalent when WoW really came out first with those 40-mans. So I'm just trying to say it's going to be a lot easier to look at different guilds and pick up 10 people. So, Gamebreaker Nation get 10, Umbra get 10, Mog Nation get 10, Subterfuge Gaming get 10. Now you've got 40, but you really only took 10 people from each guild that were probably ready to go do that, and you just agree on who's going to be the leaders for the different parts, and then you work on the level of the capability of the people that are going to do the 40-mans, because scrubs, unless they're stupid, are not going to go after 40-man raids. It's going to be, and I'm not even going to say the elite will go after it, it's going to be the people who are into raiding, who know how to suit up, line up, shut up, and do your job, and get this boss down and get your loot. And And that's just the way of success for the 40-mans or for anything in this game or any game, period. Alliances is the path to success. If people just remember nothing other than that, that is the way to take these small guilds of very close friends and get them into a capabilities where they can do things that they normally wouldn't be able to do. You know, make friendships, be part of the community, do these alliances, and then that's how you're going to be able to do this. And you're going to also be able to have a list of groups of people to call, because we're going to roll on a PvP server, to help you out when you're level 12 getting griefed by that level 50, you know? So if I say nothing more than that, alliances, Gamebreaker Nation, Circle, number 1, day 1.
Can you tell Mark was in the military? Pick up on that? Can you tell? If you had to make a call, Farhan, I've already kind of said I'm a bit skeptical on it. If you had to make a call, though, do you think 40-mans are going to stick around for the long haul? You think they're going to make it?
Do I think that they'll be popular enough that they'll keep making them?
Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit too early to say, because I want to play it before I can be sure if it's fun enough.
You just make it a judge. You're just making a call.
Okay. I'm gonna say yes because I gotta fanboy it up, right? So yes, 40-man is here to stay forever.
Mark, what do you
Get
think?
used to it.
You're pretty much behind it.
I give it 50-50 because, to your point, I have heard rumors. I don't have it confirmed, but I hear from like high-level guilds that have been asked to participate. So this is complete rumor intelligence, rumint. That a lot of them are not really digging it, and it's not because the instance is not fun. It's not because the raid's not fun. It's just because it is hard to manage 40 people. So I give it a 50-50 shot, right?
You're going 50. I'm now getting to percentages. So he's saying 100. Farhan's going 100%. You're going 50-50. I'm going to go 80-20. 80 that it doesn't stick. Sorry. I wanted to, but I just down on the we're going percentages. So.
And again, to your point, the complaint was not the raid. The complaint was not the instance. The complaint was the management headache, just like you said.
That's what I think it's going to be. I think that's why it went away, you know, in other games. I think it's the management aspect of it. I think that the rose-colored glasses, it sounds awesome, and the experience could be completely cool. It's not about like designing it. I think it's the management aspect of it. So again, I think if they can get some of those tools right, it might really it might help a lot to make some of that stuff easier. All right, I'm going to move on. We got a lot of data to talk about this week. First, I want to bring back a classic book. If you guys have not read Brave New World, every sci-fi nerd, geek, MMO player should or has to read Brave New World. Definitely no better way to do it than listen to it. Let's listen to it for a second.
He showed them racks upon racks of numbered test tubes. The week's supply of ova, kept, he explained, at blood heat, whereas the male game eats, and here he opened another door, they have to be kept at 35 instead of 37. Full blood heat sterilizes. Rams wrapped in thermogene beget no lambs.
Fantastic classic book. Seriously, MMO players, fantasy, sci-fi. You owe it to yourself. If you haven't read it, you have to go get it right now for free. All you got to do is go to audible.com/gamebreaker, download the app, and download Brave New World. And if you have read it, you should go grab it anyway. It's such a classic. It's such a great classic. So pick it back up, listen to it again. It's great in audiobook. Love Michael York. Audible.com/Gamebreaker. That's the URL you need to go to. You can try out Audible absolutely free for 30 days. Download the app, put it on your iPhone, your Android, whatever you got. And just by using the URL audible.com/Gamebreaker, you are going to get a free audiobook, and you could choose Brave New World or one of the other many books on audible.com. So go check it out. All right, Farhan. It is your time, my friend. You love the data. Lots and lots of data. So we found a really cool website called watchwildstar.com. There's a very in-depth polling system that actually shows a lot of interesting things about WildStar. So I think last week there's about 6,000 responses so far, 6,004. So obviously this is not 100% accurate information to demographics at launch and things like that, but it's
if you like pie charts.
Yes, if you like pie charts, we've got plenty of them. Get ready. There's some interesting stuff in here to pull out. So first thing, this one, I have to say, this pertains to the player genders. To be clear, this is player gender, not toon gender. This is not toon gender. And I have to say, I think Carbine are probably not too happy with this one. 90.4% male, 7.4% female.
I think that this actually has a lot more to do with where it was advertised. I'm pretty sure that this site was promoted on the
Hustler?
WildStar subreddit. Hustler. Hustler.com.
Furries in showing everything.com. Where was it? No, I mean, where was what? People, 6,000 people. That's a pretty good number.
I mean, it's not about the numbers though, but it's like just what population are you drawing from in the first place, and then like how likely are people to respond, and that sort of depends on genders and other stuff too. But like I think that this is just like, okay, so this is the sliver of people. I'm assuming that this was promoted on the WildStar subreddit. I don't know how else they would have gotten this many census entries otherwise, but. You know, so you have the people who who go to that subreddit, and then you have the people who actually are going to click on the link and fill out the thing and do it. And so, yeah, of those, then
it's probably not that surprising. You want to be honest with you? That's the exact percentages of Gamebreaker viewers. That's exactly our demographic. It's 91% male, 9% female. Like it's exact. I don't know. Well, I don't know about this other in private. We know what that. I don't know what the other aliens are over there on other, but. 90.4%. I don't know. Mark, what do you think? Were you kind of?
I don't know why. I don't know why anybody would be bothered, because I would expect it to be that, right? I mean, gamer girls are. I wouldn't say an anomaly, because there's more and more of them every year, right? Look at. I mean, we got Shrivasta, the ladies' roundtable in our chat right now. But there's always been, for years and years, more dudes playing games, especially online games, right? So that's just nothing new. Now, what I would be interested in is seeing a trend line, of maybe the last 5 years, and then maybe check the next 5 years and see that it's increasing. But I just don't think you're going to get it very far away from that, because. Let's just be honest. I mean, 9 times out of 10, when you're in TeamSpeak or Ventrilo or whatever guild you're in, or social dynamic that's game related, it's usually another dude. It's usually a sausage hang. Very seldom do you hear nice female voices, in chat. That's the reason why, like, at least in our guild, when we see a female, we're like, hi, how you doing? Please, let me know if anybody makes you feel uncomfortable. But we want you to keep coming back in here, because I'm getting tired of listening to nothing but dudes. So that's just the norm, and I don't know why anybody would be upset, right? Because especially the game development companies, because that is their demographic. Do they want it to change? Do they want more people to get into it? Sure, but that's just what I have seen for 20 plus years in gaming.
Sausage hang, Guild Umbra, sausage hang, Guild, sausage hang.
Yep.
Next one shows faction. This one is really impressive. This is looking at the faction split. Carbine have to be insanely happy with this. 50-50, right on the nose. 50% want to play
That's
Exile.
That's crazy.
50% want to play Dominion. You've done your job correctly. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's
now fine-tune that by gender. You can on this website. I love this website for that.
Save he's probably putting these things in spreadsheets and pulling out more data. Who knows what he's doing. But super impressive. 50-50. 50-50. Totally right down the split. Paths. Paths are pretty interesting. Are you guys surprised? I mean, I think the most surprising thing to me on this was actually that the soldier is the lowest one on the totem pole. And I mean, do you guys attribute that to possibly that it's the path that is most like the average MMO that we're used to, where it doesn't have anything that is super special?
I think it's that, and I think it's also the fact that, do you want to be that guy who brings a sword to a gunfight? I mean, because
the soldier is the one breaking like atomic weaponry and grenades and stuff to every other
Right,
day.
but I mean, it's a sci-fi based game, and so ranged is just it just seems to be more of a ranged kind of game, if that makes any sense.
Soldier doesn't really have anything to do with range versus melee, though. Like path
I'm
choice.
just saying. I'm saying like when you think, oh, you're right. I'm being a dumbass. I'm thinking warrior.
You think
So,
warrior, yeah.
I'm thinking warrior. I'm a dumbass.
I think it has more to do again with like sampling bias, because I think the people who are more likely to fill out a survey like this are going to be more likely to, pick something like Explorer or something.
Something a
I
bit
think that
more
it'll be
like-
more than 20% will be Soldier, but yeah.
I mean, these
I
numbers
would
are pretty
expect it to be one of
tight.
the
I
more
mean, this
Here's-
chart's
here's-
pretty
here's the-
tight.
Yeah, it's tight, but I actually would have expected Soldier to be one of the higher ones, just because I think that people like the combat.
I think that without giving away too much and without ghosting myself, my impression, from playing 1 to 15, is that, and Farhan, you tell me what you think. I think that chart's going to change drastically after people play the game and they get through their first 10 levels.
Changed for me. Changed for me in the first 1 to 15. I can tell you that. I mean, we could talk about that. I mean, I immediately thought I would like the Explorer, which is number 1 on the list. I played it for about 15, 20 minutes, and I completely played Soldier after that. I was like, nope, not for me.
Yep, and so okay, so we've gone there.
We should rename Explorer to Scavenger Hunter.
Yeah. So
Well,
we're there.
I found the jumping puzzles personally. Like, I just found them like I'm terrible at them. I'm a terrible gamer. That's the way it is. And I just found them incredibly difficult, and I was just getting frustrated. I'm like, screw this. Let me just beat on shit.
Yeah, and so because of that, it sounds great. I don't really see the benefit of it, and because of it, it's taking away time that you could be killing mobs. That's helping you gain levels, because for every minute or hour that you're spending jumping up and down on that puzzle is a minute or an hour that you could be kicking somebody in his teeth, taking his loot and getting XP. Right?
So is your call that they most of the people taking this census actually have not played the game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Otherwise they would have been playing it instead of filling out the survey.
Yeah, and it would be soldier.
Or settler, like everywhere. Settlers everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, everyone who's talking about being, an explorer and a scientist. Yeah, let's look at this this whole thing.
Honestly,
after open beta or the game comes live.
I expect the Explorer path to see a lot of love compared to where it is right now, though, just because, if you compare it to all the other classes, even Soldier has more, like, group dynamics going on. Explorer is, like, the most selfish path ever, because, if you're in a group with an Explorer, they're like, I want to, like, do the scavenger hunt thing over here. You're like, no, guy. Let's just go. Let's go.
He's taking you across the map to do something that, wow, now everyone has Explorer XP, which does nothing for me because I'm a Esper,
But people, what's surprising though is that people love the jumping puzzles in Guild Wars 2, which is sort of where this is sort of coming from to some extent. I'm sure they look at all that, and people love them in that game. And it's funny to hear that all three of us are sort of unanimously going like, yeah, but once you play it.
See, I don't actually have a problem with the jumping puzzles though. It's in fact I actually
is it that it's just tied to a path so tightly.
Like the Explorer is just. Right now, that's one huge thing. I think that I hate that it's tied to a path, because one time, even like on one of the first streams that I did with Mark, we were like walking by like where I knew a jumping puzzle was. It was like a tree that you had to climb up, and I was like, oh hey, let's just show off the jumping puzzle, even though neither of us is an explorer. We get like halfway up the tree, and it's like, no, you can't go any higher because you don't have the Explorer. Like the Explorer can't start the buff that lets you get a super jump. That you can't go up the rest of the way. Like I thought that was sort of lame. Yeah. But besides that, Explorer just has like so many more missions.
They take you away from where all your quest hubs are, so it's killing your time. And so again, it depends, right? In life, everything it depends on what your frame of reference is. I'm trying to get to level 50, and I never really was like this before, but I'm trying to get to level 50 as fast as I can. Why? We're going to be on a PvP server, so I don't want to be sitting there screwing around, having to watch my back while trying to jump up and down and flip on a damn tree to go somewhere. I want to try to get to level 50 as fast as I can so that I don't have to worry with that tune. Doing all these jumping puzzles is something that you do as a leisure, I think, or unless you're just going to level very slow. which are both things you don't want to do on a PvP server, I don't think, right? At least if you don't have a bunch of people with you. So
yeah, the path wasn't what I expected. I'm an explorer at heart. Like, I love games that just allow you to explore and find new things and find, explore. And I was actually kind of surprised when I got in there and found out that, like, well, almost all of this has to do with jumping puzzles, because that to me wasn't really like what an explorer is. Like, I wanted to really like go on journeys and find stuff and then be rewarded for that. I didn't want to do jumping puzzles.
Well, so I don't know how far you got with your explorer. You said that was like 10, 15, 20 minutes, right?
No,
the arc ship experience is
but
entirely jumping puzzles, but then after that it's actually a lot more scavenger hunting. Like there's like a clue when you're sort of like trying to figure out like oh, there's an item hidden by the rock in Derridu. You're like, what? There's so many rocks everywhere. You're like sort of walking around. So I mean, like I think that's gonna get some love and some fine tuning, but it's not. It's totally not 100% jumping puzzle. The arc ship is like the first 3 levels. You're almost only seeing jumping puzzles as an explorer, but after that, it actually does open up a little bit more to like sort of finding stuff. And I think that in chat, Chasey actually said it pretty well. Explorer is just for people who actually like wasting time, I think. And yeah, like if you're gonna actually, and I think more importantly, wasting time on your own. So if you're gonna play this MMO like mostly solo, and you just want to explore the world, like, immerse yourself in it, find stuff, then Explorer actually might be somewhat fun.
You better be on a PvE server.
It'll be interesting to see what how these numbers maybe shift post launch, and see what people actually once they play them. Next one here, let's look at the classes. Not a bad margin between classes either. Slinger, number 1. Not a surprise. Won Mr. Mark Taylor over very quickly. You thought you were going to go for some sort of warrior melee class, and you ended up falling in love with the Spellslinger, correct?
I think he's going to engineer, right?
I was actually engineer, but the Spellslinger is really good too. Really, really good.
You weren't really sure. You were kind of bouncing between the two of them, I think.
That's right. That's right.
Does this surprise anybody? Looks pretty. Warrior at the bottom. Warriors are usually rolled pretty heavy down at the bottom.
And it's a survey.
You think it's just because most of the
people
of these other classes are
click
kind
on
of
warrior, yeah.
A little bit out. Even the name of it, reminds you every MMO you've ever played has a warrior. Not every MMO you've played has a spellslinger. Medic and engineer had a lot of hype around them. I'm not sure medic was super well received. I don't know. The bottom 50% is very melee orientated. If you look at this now, even the Esper can go full melee, and a lot of people don't like their stationary, I guess, ranged attack. Still, it's pretty tight. Pretty tight for a 6,000.
I'm doing good work here, denigrating the Esper. pushing it down.
Rolls. About 50% DPS, shocking no one. Usually what most people roll. Slightly more healers and tanks. These numbers are pretty straightforward, I think. This kind of everything looks pretty much in line. I was surprised when I saw that 18% for the medic, because I thought a lot of people would be put off the name. I don't know. Look at some of the medic rolls. You had healer, damage, and other. 73% going healer.
There's that medic name.
There's that medic name.
It's gonna really. I think that when people actually get a hold of medic DPS, that they might start to actually decide that no, they're not going to be pigeonholed into a healing role. They're going to actually play DPS.
Their DPS is pro in PvP.
It's pretty fun.
This one here's the shocker. 55.9% of the people surveyed in this are saying they're going on a PvP server. If you add in the other sliver of the PvP RP, you're talking like over 60% of the players looking to come into WildStar are going on a PvP server. I was actually very surprised by this.
The only reason why I think it's that way, because I have, other than dabbling here and there, I've never rolled on a PvP server. I mean, I've rolled tunes on them, usually as alts, just to check out different things.
So what's changed your whole outlook on it? Why are you rolling on a PvP server?
I think it's because, I've always liked PvP, and my frame of reference was always, I want to level on my own, and then I want to queue for PvP, or I want to go to an instance for PvP because I want to turn it off and just chill when I'm leveling. But the more you get involved, the more you have friends, a guild, a group, whatever, the more I want to do PvP. So I find that good PvP queues can, become rare, right? The queues start to slow down, especially as any game has its initial wave up and then it kind of tapers off and then, it kind of hovers. You can just wait a long time in PvP queue. So the frame reference I'm thinking of now is just the fact that, well, if it's open world, we can have PvP anywhere, anytime. And I don't have to necessarily worry about only getting a queue. I don't have to necessarily worry about only having an epic event in this instance. You could have an hour, 2-hour PvP event in one map area, because more and more people keep calling. So it's just the my growing love of PvP over years of time, but the fact that I want more PvP more often and more frequently than waiting in a queue for 20, 30 minutes for PvP that only lasts for 10 minutes, if that makes any sense.
What do you think, Farm? Where's the 60% coming from? I mean, do you think there's a lot of ex-Guild Wars 2 players that were disappointed over there, keeping their eye on WildStar to maybe come over?
It's possible. Honestly, though, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'm just going to say it's sampling bias again, and say that the more hardcore community is probably more in tune with trying to do something like a PvP server. I still expect that when launch actually happens, it's going to end up being something like 75% PvE server, and maybe 25% PvP. That's just what always happens at launch.
You think it's going to shift that much? You think it's going to shift that much, huh? 60%?
I think it's just like
it's sampling bias the other way.
The people who are going to fill out this survey, or even know enough to be able to fill out the survey, are hardcore WildStar fans already. The games don't even have a release date.
Stuff like that,
So.
Next up, Dominion races. No love for the Draken.
They're ugly, man.
15%.
I love the Draken. I wish they could be every class. I would just always make a Draken. Every time.
If it's female.
Not a whole lot of love.
That's a good point.
This might actually be the first MMO race poll I've seen that humans aren't in first place, though. Which is nice.
I'm going to again say that sampling bias.
Who got the
Can we get that on loop?
Oh, the Cassians?
Yeah, we can get it on loop.
I have seen a ridiculous amount of love for the Chua, which I normally hate the little diminutive races, but they actually kind of made them a little bit cool, Only because they're crazy.
No love for the Granok either. This one was, I guess, a little bit more.
Oh, they're hated over. They're hated over in Asia.
Yes,
they are hated in Asia.
I think a lot of it actually has to do with the fact that in this survey they were actually good enough.
Survey bias? Is it survey
no,
bias?
No. I'm actually going to say that no, this is actual bias because not every class can be every race, and like the Granok is one of the ones that's a little bit more restricted. Draken is also a little bit more restricted. You can't be like a Draken Esper or a Draken Medic or whatever. So or a Draken Engineer, which were like. Pretty high up. The medic and engineer were pretty high up in there. So I'm gonna say that. I mean, that's part of it, and that's gonna be a real bias that actually affects the the way everything falls when launch happens. That said, I don't know what's up with Arin, right? Because they're one of the most restricted classes there or races there is, and yet they're still
number one. Number one.
Furries.
There you go.
That's it. It's totally biased. The census community are all furries. All right, I want to catch up on both of your gameplay because you guys have been spending a lot of time playing WildStar over the holiday break, and I want to catch up and see where you guys are at. This next segment of UDSP is brought to you by World of Warplanes. I have been playing a ton of World of Warplanes over the holiday break, actually, and I've been having a blast. I don't know if you guys have checked out this game, but I'm having a blast. I like it a lot more than tanks. I love tanks. I do love tanks, but I kind of like planes. Dogfighting, totally free to play. Completely free to play. And one thing I love about the wargaming guys, zero pay to win. Did you guys see their stance a couple weeks ago when they came out and they said not one item in the cash shop, every single item, I should say, in the cash shop can be unlocked via gameplay. So kudos to them for going the non-pay-to-win route, taking the high road there. So check it out. If you guys haven't checked it out, it's completely free to play. You don't need to spend a penny. If you want to check it out, just go to offergb.com/warplanes. Download it today. Absolutely free. Tons of people playing. Planes, dogfighting planes. Awesome. I've been having a great time. Offergb.com/warplanes. All right, so fill me in, you guys. You guys have been playing WildStar a ton over the holidays. I don't know. What's been going on? You've been streaming, you've been playing. Did you force you guys to play any more of the Exiles, or does that hate blind you? How are you guys feeling?
So we did it so that we could hang out with some of the other folks who were authorized to stream. So we were hanging out with Anrez, who does Settler in Exile.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Also known as, I guess, Econ PvPer. And we were hanging out with Mike Joseph, aka Arrow Wolf from WildStarFans.net.
Mm-hmm.
And we were basically checking out the Exile side just to see what it's like. They have some interesting story. I think some of it's better written than the Dominion side. So we were just trying to check out the story side. The classes are still the same. The races are obviously different. And so we've had basically two missions when we stream. A, to try to keep something going because UDSP was kind of down for those 2 weeks. But B, we're trying to reach out, I guess, as a Gamebreaker envoy ambassador to the rest of the community, and we've got a lot of the community folks in chat to try to show that there is solidarity, that there is a community, that it's not like a lot of the other MMOs where they're all buttheads. So we're trying to show and showcase other folks that are allowed to stream legally 1 through 15, and maybe show that we're all working together. Our different folks may be trying to monetize. Some of them are, some of them aren't. But we're just trying to show that there is a community, that the people in this game are pretty cool. I haven't met any people who are haters, who are assholes. I'm sure that there's some out there, and I'm sure that they're going to come when the game launches. And so we're just showing off leveling. Hopefully we'll do some more streaming and actually show off different aspects, but we weren't trying to show the Nat's ass detail of this is crafting and this is how do you do an amp and this is how you do whatever. We're just trying to show playing the game, talking, and just getting to know the community, because there are other sites that are going to, or streams that are going to go into real specific detail on all these things. So we're trying to showcase that. I don't know, Farhan, you got anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, we're also, I'm going to just say, we're also on the Exile side for the faster PvP pops. But, because, somebody's got to be on the Exile side when they're fighting. Might as well be us. So we were doing that. That was actually quite a lot of fun. I am actually enjoying the Exile side a lot. So I can't really say that they're like, bad or whatever. But yeah, I mean, RN are not my favorite race at all. But
has any opinions changed since the last episode? Remember, last episode was long. We had a long last episode. We made up for those 2 weeks being off. That it was like 4 days long. Any of your opinions changed on WildStar since you've been playing a little bit since the last episode?
No, I mean, I want to show more levels if we can, because we're continuing to level with certain tunes. One problem that we're running into is we're having to delete certain tunes so that we can go re-roll, so that we can keep showing the level 1 through 15 content. But the one thing I do love about the game is I mean, obviously there are things that they can fix. It's beta. The UI is something that they really need to fix. But we're really having a good time with the PvP, because it seems to be the most balanced PvP I've seen to date, especially in a beta format. The game is very well polished. It's very stable. I mean, the only there are a couple of bugs, but for where it's at, it's very stable. But the PvP is the one thing I always try to make sure that we highlight a lot, because other than when you get ganked, 5-on-1, there's just really nothing you can do with that. But regardless of the classes that Farhan and I play, depending on our playstyle, we're always coming within like a very close threshold or range of the same amount of kills, the same amount of deaths. So I got to take my hats off to these guys and say that they've really been able to balance the classes pretty well. I mean, there are some tweaks that need to be made, clearly, but I've just never seen it. I mean, whereas in other MMOs, the Hunter or the Inquisitor or whatever, is just OP as hell, right? And it wasn't even close relative to whatever map you're on. Farhan?
Yeah, I think in terms of what I thought has maybe changed since last time, I think I got a much better grasp of how crafting works, especially thanks to Onres's amazing live stream. They're gonna plug him a little bit. Go to WildStar fans and check it out. But the crafting is actually like pretty deep and pretty interesting, and I found that it's surprisingly potent. Like how important it is, even especially as a PvPer, which is sort of like, on the one hand, I'm a little bit torn because it's like, I know that a lot of people who want to PvP like exclusively and level up through PvP are going to want to just do that, right? They're not going to want to like do crafting and all that other stuff. But hey, maybe they can get some money and go buy the stuff, because keeping your armor up to date, keeping all that stuff up to date as you're leveling up and you're doing that, it's actually incredibly important for PvP. PvP in this game, when you're playing as you're leveling, it like levels you up to the max level of the bracket. Sort of like how Star Wars had like the bolstering thing, where and there they maxed you all the way up to, I think, level 50 or whatever the max was in Star Wars. But here it's just like, so in that first bracket of 6 through 14, everyone is level 4, scaled up to 14. But if you don't keep your gear current, then it doesn't get scaled up as much as it would if you had like whatever current gear. So the gear that you bring into the match actually matters. And so like I'm actually pretty happy that crafting is actually like significant and actually a really nice source of gear, and so I've become a lot happier with that. I think that's the number one thing that as I play the game more, especially in 1 to 15, that I've noticed that it's actually like a very significant, very solid part of the game.
Yeah, one thing to add to that real quick is that crafting matters, because you'll get to certain areas in your gear that you can buy, that you win from drops, but then there will be holes, and it is specifically within those gaps that crafted gear matters. So being a crafter in this game is important. It's great. They've made the crafters useful.
Or just give your money to the crafter. Whatever.
Mark Taylor, follow him on Twitter at GuildUmbra, and of course right here on UDSP every Monday at 3 PST. And watch out for the occasional live stream of Mark and Farhan. Always live streaming the WildStar randomly right here on Gamebreaker TV. Farhan Siddiqui, follow him on Twitter at Unindel, UNINDEL, and right here on Mondays as well. You can follow me at Gary Gannon, follow Gamebreaker TV, and go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/GamebreakerTV. And we'll be back next week for some more Unicorn Duck Shadow Puppet. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Nation.